Let's talk about Epstein.
Okay.
We're not supposed to talk about it anymore, right? Trump wants us to shut up. He wants us to shut up
It's
about
a witch
Epstein.
hunt.
Oh gosh. I mean, really, what in the world has gone on here? This was something that they ran on. I mean, the Republicans ran on releasing the Epstein files. And then they gave us this stupid, horse and pony show or whatever, dog and pony show of the social media, influencers coming out with the binders, and there was nothing in the binders. And then they essentially shut down the case, saying there's nothing to see here. There's really, no ring. Somehow Ghislaine Maxwell is sitting in prison rotting for a ring that she was involved in, and yet now they're saying to us, no, there's nothing to see here. There was no ring, even though Jeffrey Epstein himself actually had been convicted at one point. So what in the world? What do you make of this? I mean, a lot of people are suspicious that Trump is implicated, and that's why he's behaving this way. I mean, what do you think it is?
I mean, look, so I'm conflicted about this because we're talking about speculation here, just to be fair. And I'm not anything like the expert that Daryl Cooper is, or Rye Dawson, or some of these others who have done deep research on this subject. I haven't. I've listened to them talk, as what I know about it. And I mean, I've read a bit about it, but I wouldn't claim any kind of real expertise on it. But look, I think the most obvious reason for him to cover up is protecting the intelligence agencies, American and or Israeli, and whatever involvement they had with what was going on there, and just powerful people, extremely powerful clientele involved in this to whatever degree. Maybe he was just blackmailing them for the money, or maybe he was just getting his friends laid because he's a party guy and that's all there is to it, and whatever. Like, we don't know. There's a lot of things that we don't know. There are a
Mhm.
lot of things that we do know that cause real reason to speculate about what was really going on here, how this guy achieved all of his power and wealth and success and properties that he controlled around the world, including his own island and the fanciest mansion in all of Manhattan and his own giant ranch out in New Mexico, and running around with the most powerful people and with this reputation. As Daryl points out, it wasn't Epstein, it was polite society that had named his plane the Lolita Express. And they all knew what that meant. That's the Nabokov novel, which I don't never read it, but it has something to do with gross sexual child something in there. And so this is like a code word or whatever for that. And they all know that. John McCain's wife said, we all knew what he was doing, but we were afraid. Well, huh? I mean, there's clearly something going on there. And he's running around with very powerful people. And I don't think it's crystal clear, what his role was and all that. And then when it comes to Donald Trump, we know that they were really friends, like close pals, and went out together at night and whatever for something like a decade, and referred to each other as close friends for a very long time. And then they had a falling out over a property dispute. And then supposedly also, and see, I really don't know the details. I'm kind of talking out of school about this, but I know that there was a thing about where Epstein had something to do. I don't know the details. I'm sorry. Something to do with a guy's daughter who worked at Mar-a-Lago,
Yeah.
whether he had just hit on her or whether he had actually victimized her, whatever. I forget what it was. But Trump had heard the complaint and kicked him out of the club then.
Yeah.
And then I believe he went and talked to the FBI about Epstein. They came asking, and Trump told them whatever, went down there without his lawyer and threw the guy under the bus, didn't seem to be afraid. And, Trump clearly is a womanizer. That doesn't mean that he's willing to force somebody, that's a different thing. So who
Sure.
knows? On the other hand, well, and also along those lines, and the FBI never leaked that, yeah, we have this in his FBI file that he's a rapist and we know it, and that underage girls, from Ukraine were trafficked in under the Victoria's Secret thing or this or that. And if they had that on Trump, we'd have known that a long time ago. They wouldn't have had to necessarily even mention Jeffrey Epstein with it, or even if it had led to him, they could still clamp down on the rest of the story just as much as they have this whole time, right? So that's kind of the dog that didn't bark there. Is like, if Trump is really guilty, then the national government police know it and they're not saying that. And why not? Um, on the other hand, the way he talks about it doesn't sound like he's just covering for Israel, does it? It sounds like he just wants this thing to go away because he's afraid. Probably, I guess, what the girlfriend, Maxwell, will say about him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because, like, who knows? But would she be able to prove anything if, after all this time anyway, or whatever? Like, but the way he talks about it, he's clearly upset And the way he tried to say, like, listen, you either love me or you want to know more about this. I demand you choose right now. Like, that is such a weird and ham-handed way to go about this, trying to
Yeah.
force the issue into that mold and whatever. And trying to say, well, this is just like Russiagate. Yeah, well, no, it's not. And it doesn't, to any critic or anyone like familiar with the way the federal police agencies and intelligence agencies and whatever operate, nobody thinks that this is like
Hmm.
that John Brennan and Jim Comey made up all this stuff in order to make Trump look bad. I mean, everybody knows that Bill Clinton was Epstein's best buddy more
Yeah.
than Trump ever was,
Right.
right? They went
Right.
palling around all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you saw that clip on The Daily Show when what's his name, Trevor, whatever, interviewed Hillary Clinton. And his first question for her, he goes, "How did you kill Jeffrey Epstein?" He goes, which was fun. She was like, "Oh my God," which is got a good laugh in there. But yeah, I mean, the joke being there that we all know that it's a bipartisan kind of operation there going on. And
Yeah.
then, or I don't know what we know about it, but see, they said that the mansion in New York was wired for video and sound. Now they say, well, he was just filming himself in there. But geez, he's got an endless parade of fancy and powerful people in and out of that place, including the former prime minister and defense minister of Israel, former head of military intelligence, Ehud Barak, um,
Hmm.
and all of these things. So, I don't know. I guess something that Sagar and Jetty said on Tucker I thought was smart, that he said, what they're doing here is they're just covering for the mass of the or whatever, Martha's Vineyard crowd or whatever, and
Yeah.
signaling to them that y'all are safe.
Right.
Nobody's getting in trouble for this. Oh, one more thing, as long as I'm rambling incoherently about this, Kim, is Wired Magazine did a thing where they tracked the cell phone location data on like a heat map from this company that tracks that stuff. And they didn't name names because they didn't want to mistakenly implicate anyone, or imply of what people were up to. But they showed a lot of people. I'm going to say high hundreds of people, maybe thousands, but I think like certainly hundreds of people were going there. Here's the marina where they would take a little boat over. Here's the dock where they would get on a helicopter to come over. And here's where they all hung out at the temple. And here's where they were sitting on the beach and all these different things. And then they show, where are these people from? Well,
Hmm.
some of them from Austin, Texas, a bunch of them from Aspen, and of course, Washington, D.C., and Martha's Vineyard, and all the fancy pants places where fancy people are from.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people in and out of there. And remember the Netflix documentary, they have two witnesses who say, well, at least one of them in that documentary. I know there are at least two. I forget if they're from separate sources now or not. Pardon me. I know there are two people on camera, like named, admitted, here's my name. I saw Bill Clinton there. One of them was, I think, a janitor that worked there, maintenance guy that worked there, and said, oh, I saw Bill Clinton there, all right. And they lie about that. Oh, no, Bill Clinton would never go there or whatever. So um, there was a funny clip of from Always Sunny where Danny DeVito's character is going, yeah, look, I went there, but it was just a scuba diving thing, the sex island, I don't know about all that stuff. I didn't get to have fun there. I was just doing the other thing. So I don't know the whole story. Nobody knows the whole story. But is there enough to think that it's more than just one rich guy getting away with something?
Yeah.
It, it sure seems like there's more to it than that. And then
Yeah.
I guess we'll see what they release in the grand jury thing. Trump says release everything pertinent, but they're asking the courts and the Justice Department to release grand jury stuff. So there is a potential, right? That like, no, that'll shut him up. That everybody knows that, like, yeah, his girlfriend's father was Mossad and that he must have been blackmailing Lex Wexner, but that doesn't make him a spy. It just means that he compromised this one billionaire and took control of his assets and what, I don't know, something. There could be lesser explanations somehow. I'm just saying that I think we clearly all have the right to hear them, especially when you have
Mhm.
so many powerful people implicated in the thing,
Yeah.
where you can see why they all have this incentive to cover for each other and protect each other, just as the branches of the state always do. But there has to be a time, just like with the wars. there has to be a time where the people get to scratch the needle off the record, stop, call a general strike, and insist that no, you don't get to go on like nothing ever happened and we're over this now and we're going to look forward, not backward, and all of this stuff. That no, you're not going to get away with burying the whole truth here. We want all of it. And so,
Well,
and
so far it seems
that's
like
the
the
silver
American
lining,
people.
right?
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
so crystallizing.
and people are. I mean, they're not. People that supported Trump, voted for Trump, voted for him 3 times. They're even stopping and saying, "Wait a minute, no, we want the Epstein files. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
We're not stopping. We're not going to stop talking about this." So I think a lot of people, it'll be interesting to see how this develops as it goes forward. But yeah, I hear you. There could be lesser explanations to the whole thing, but I really doubt it. Because look, if they're willing to let Harvey Weinstein go down, for example, one rich guy is, if it was one rich guy just doing terrible things,
Right.
they would take him down. I mean, they would just say, "Oh, yeah, all right,
Yeah.
we had this rich guy doing really bad things." The fact is, there's
Oh, and
just
Kim,
more than that. There's
we're
got to be more
burying the
than this
lead
one.
here. Yeah, no, we're burying the lead here, both of us. And forgive me, I got too much going on. The lawyer who got him the cushy deal was found dead yesterday.
Oh, yes. I
I'm
mean, we
sure it
shouldn't be
was an
laughing. We're
accident.
not
No, I have
laughing.
no
We're
idea
not
what happened to him,
laughing.
but
Oh my gosh.
yeah, no,
Y
I'm not laughing at him being dead, like,
No,
for his
it's just
family or
the
whatever. I'm
circumstance,
just
of
saying,
course.
boy, what are the odds?
What are the odds?
And you know
What
what?
are the odds?
I remember in the 90s when Ron Brown, the Commerce Secretary, died in a plane crash in, I think, Bosnia or something. And they said, man, it looked like he had a bullet hole in his head, which may or may not have been right. I don't know. But I remember at the time, the talk radio lady, Raleigh James, in Austin said, isn't it something that we all just assume that Bill Clinton murdered his own cabinet secretary? That like it just, and like maybe he didn't. But if he did, would anyone listening be that surprised? We would just say,
Mm,
oh, he must have like got into some business that was going to hurt Mr. President's interests. And so
yeah,
he had to go. Of course, that's how they do it. You know what I mean? Or at least, of course, we are all that jaded and cynical and used by these people that we have no trouble believing it anyway, pending evidence, presume them guilty. Why not? Seems like
yeah.
they would,
Well, in
especially
fairness,
with Bill Clinton. I don't know about Donald Trump. With Bill Clinton, I already know that he's a face biting rapist, sicko, psychopath, child murderer. I mean, Donald Trump had a hell of a foreign policy, but Bill Clinton had a foreign policy in Texas.
yeah.
So that's different,
In
you know?
fairness, the Epstein lawyer that died was 80, and supposedly he
Oh,
died of illness at home, in his old age or whatever, but he
oh,
was
these
the
things
attorney.
happen.
Right,
I
yeah,
know.
but, I mean, it's a good excuse, but he was the attorney who knew the details of the sweetheart deal that was struck between Epstein and, in Florida at the time. Was it Florida or was it New York when he struck? I think it
In
was
Florida.
Florida where he
Yeah.
struck the sweetheart deal where he basically just got like 2 months in jail, but he could leave all
Mm.
day, kind of a
Yeah.
thing. It
And to
was
your point, a
yeah,
sweeter deal than any billionaire gets. There are plenty of billionaires who go to country club prison, but they don't get that kind of deal,
yeah, the
you
Epstein
know?
got the best deal. And here's the other thing, when Pam Bondi, what they're trying to do this kind of sneaky thing, right? With Trump saying, "Okay, yeah, release everything, grand jury, blah blah blah," and then Pam Bondi's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I'm going to go talk to Ghislaine Maxwell, and we'll see what she says." And it's like, what do you think Ghislaine Maxwell is going to say? This is her golden opportunity to get out. She's now got the Trump administration and Pam Bondi and the FBI saying, "There's nothing to see here. There was no ring. Case closed." And then Ghislaine can sit there and say, "Well, then why am I here?" So it's not like Elaine's going to say, actually, hold on, hold the presses. There actually was a sex ring going on, and I've got all the names of all the powerful people, and let me just go ahead and rattle them off so that I could just remain in prison for the rest of my life. No, she's going to say, you're right. There was nothing. I'm wrongly convicted. I shouldn't be here. Nothing happened. Nothing was going on. Get me out of here. And that's going to be her answer. And then Pam Bondi's going to come back and say, even Ghislaine Maxwell said there was nothing going on. So all of you conspiracy theorists can just stop talking about it. And then Trump could say,
Yeah.
"See, even Ghislaine Maxwell said there was nothing going on." And of course, the any documents that they have. What makes us believe that there's any documents to be found when the documents are in the hands of probably Mossad and the CIA? They're the owners of
Yeah.
they're the owners of the client list. They're the owners of any sort of blackmail that there would be to procure. So they're not going to let that just go and sit in his Manhattan mansion, after he procures it. No, they're going to grab it and wipe it. And there was nothing to even find. And so, to think that, oh, we're going to get this release. No, are we going to now get all of the CIA files? We're going to get Mossad to
Mm.
open up their vault
You know
and
what though?
share with us what they got? No.
But isn't it the case though that this is just such a huge self-inflicted wound that ever since they did this, like they could have just maybe shut up and hoped that it would go away. It certainly would have been quieter than this giant announcement, like Frank Drebin in Police Squad. There's just nothing to see here as the whole building burns behind them. And
Right.
that has like I admit I'm not on Twitter right now because I got too many other jobs, but my perception is that the level of scandal has really been turned up to 11 here, right? Like this is as fever pitch as it gets as far as discontent over this. And might even surmise that the dam has kind of broken maybe on more journalists' willingness to dig into this thing.
Yeah.
That, you know what? Actually, I know a couple of things about that, and I know a guy who knows a guy. Maybe I could write about this too. So there are a lot of great journalists in this country, who happen to write for here or there. You know what I mean? But like who might really want to get to the bottom of this stuff. And government employees with access like to talk. So you see that guy. Oh, what's his name? Gets them every time, invites these people out to dinner and asks them their secrets and they just spill their guts. James O'Keefe.
James O'Keefe.
And they
Yeah.
just tell him whatever he wants. He's just like,
Yeah.
"Oh, you're pretty. Tell me all your secrets." And they're like, "Okay." And then they're just like, "Whatever, dude." Um, so yeah, it can be done. It can be done. All this stuff, that I saw what Megyn Kelly had a big fight with Ben Shapiro, which I didn't watch, but I saw that the headline was that she said, "No, but I have sources who work for these agencies and they are telling me." And
Yeah.
that he had said, "Oh yeah, well, what are their names?" And she goes, "No, that's not how it works, but I'm telling you, they work there and they know that there's more to be told here."
Hmm.
Along the lines of people's suspicions, for example. So, you know, where's Julian Assange? I know he's on vacation, a well-deserved one, but like, all right, buddy boy, it's
I
time to
don't
get
think he
back to
wants
work
to.
here.
I don't think
Let's
he's
get the
interested in
WikiLeaks,
going back
you
to
know.
jail, right? I think that's probably, yeah, I can't
Mm,
blame him for not wanting to step back
I
into
know.
the hornet's nest.
He's had a
Not for
hard
a long
time.
time anyway. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
rougher than anybody for the most part. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm inclined to think that they don't have anything on Trump. I'm inclined to think that they've got something on somebody he loves. That's what I'm inclined to think. And I
Yeah.
think
Oh, that
that's the
makes
way to
sense.
get people. That's yeah,
Yeah.
that's the way to get because you're right, there's a lot of Trump's past where he's like, "Here's Epstein, throw him under the bus," back in the day. But like, why cover for him now, or why cover for the whole thing now? And I think there's been some threat, maybe, and that's the way they could get me.
Yeah.
People ask me all the time, "Kim, you should run for office. Why don't you run for office?" And I'm like, I would never run for office. For one, because even though I'm not afraid they could dig up all kinds of things on me or whatever, and I'd be like, yeah, okay, whatever. And I think that's Trump's attitude about his past. He'd be like, "Okay, yeah, and so." But the minute you start threatening somebody I care about, oh, I wouldn't be able to go forward with, that's where things get really, really touchy, right? Because that person
Yep.
didn't sign up for whatever. And so whoever it is, for example, maybe, I mean, this is total speculation, but just trying to get into the psyche of why would somebody be full bore on, yeah, we're gonna release the Epstein files and suddenly not. What if they have something like, on his child, one of his sons, or maybe on his wife or something where that's, maybe she wasn't, um, involved like as maybe sort of a victim, maybe not as a child, but as an adult or whatever. And just these things would come out and it would be damaging to the person you care about. And it would just, at some point, I think most people, except for Howard Stern, is the only person I could think of who didn't. But most people would try to protect the people they love rather than just blab it out and say, "I don't really care. You know what I do for a living. You know what my job is, and so I'm just going to say whatever, and I don't care how much it hurts you." Um, I think most people do have a limit on how much they're willing to hurt the people they love, how much
Right.
they're so, that kind of makes me wonder if that's I think you could blackmail a lot of people by not getting them, but getting the people they love.
Yep. And Trump knows a lot of people, a lot of powerful ones. And so, it might be somebody whose name we wouldn't think of. You know what
Right.
I mean? Unless
Yeah.
you really knew these people. And You know what I mean? But yeah, sure, there could be a lot of things there. But I do agree with you that his reaction seems to be very personal. Even if you go back to his statement about Maxwell when she was sentenced, where he's like, "Hey, I wish her best of luck."
Yeah.
Like he all but said, "Hey, lady, I'm not the one who did this to you. Please don't do nothing to me, man. This is my big day." You know what I mean? You're gonna have to take this one for the team, lady, kind of thing. And please don't. And I got nothing to give you. I
Right.
can't in front of everyone. But at least like definitely make sure not to step on her toes and hurt her feelings on the way out. You know what I mean? Like it was kind of weird. It really was. Like that was his message to her. Was like, "Hey, don't drop the soap." You know.
Hey guys, thank you for watching this clip from the full Kim Iverson show, which you could check out Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. See you there.